we are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. To keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedate.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
Storm. It's Saturday night. It's prime time. We're worldwide right here on the Republic Broadcasting Network. You can find me on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, a whole bunch of different places. It's just at Toward Anarchy. Wherever you find me, please just take that quick second to tap that like button, click that like button. Let me know that you're out there. You can follow along at towardanarchy.com, of course, and it's a good thing that I do that. I tell you what, if I didn't do the whole putting together the website thing, I would have no idea where to even begin to talk about some of this stuff. It's ridiculous, the amount of just everything that's going on out there, and it's ridiculous the amount of noise this stupid chair is making. So I'm going to switch over to this one and hope that it doesn't make the noise. There we go. That's nice. Ugh. It would just be so wonderful. Wouldn't it be nice if it were just easy? But then if it were easy, it wouldn't be that much fun, would it? No, there's just so much going on. Within minutes of me, I think within minutes of me starting the show last week, which it was recorded a few hours before it actually airs, within a few minutes of it, after having just talked about it during the show, we're bombing Iran. Well, they're bombing Iran. It had nothing to do with me. It didn't have anything to do with you, probably, most likely. It seems unlikely that either of us had anything to do with it. But, maybe you had a part to play in it, but I didn't. So there's no we here. It's the federal government. It's the maniacal leader of the federal government. It's definitely Donald Trump that's got this stuff going on and is waging his own little personal war, making his own little mark on history and claiming that he's doing it for the good of everyone else. But I doubt it. I very seriously doubt it. I think he's only in it for himself. I think that he doesn't care what he does. That's what I was saying last week. I don't think that he cares what happens. I don't think he cares in any way whatsoever what happens to America, because he sees himself above it. He's one of these globalists. He's one of these people that has enough money that he doesn't have to have a state. He can be relatively stateless. He can just up and fly around and go places other people can't go or won't go, wouldn't bother to go after him if he were there and they needed to find him for some reason. I think he absolutely believes he has nothing to lose, period. And that's it. And he's got his little vendetta. Somebody somewhere told him that Iran tried to have him killed during the election, and so now he's got it he's got it good for the people in the Middle East. And I don't know. I have no idea where it goes. We've been doing this back and forth for years, longer than I've been around, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I can tell you a single thing that's going to happen out of it. All that I can tell you for sure is that it's not good for America. None of it's good for America. Trump isn't good for America. No president is good for America. We are better off without these politicians waging wars in our name and stealing in our name and just everything that they do in our name. They don't, none of it. They don't do any of it in their own name. Do you see what I'm talking about there? What I mean by how they'll get away with it, how they're above it, because it's the system. It's not them. Oh, they're just the one guy. They're just the current person in the system. All you have to do is get rid of the person that's in the system, and everything is going to be hunky-dory again, right? That's the myth that we're told with each election, and as it rolls around, that all you have to do is have faith in the system and show up at the polls and vote, and if you're lucky that you get the day off and you have the time to go and vote, and your vote actually counts and makes a difference, which it doesn't, then maybe in some way you're participating. But come on, how often do we have to do this? How bad does the dollar have to be? How much pain and suffering do we have to go through before you realize that it's the system and that the system doesn't care about you? You'll figure it out eventually, I'm certain of that. But I don't know when, and I don't know where, and I don't know why, and I don't know how, and I'm not going to hang around and wait for you to catch on. I'm going to say my piece, and I'm going to move right on down the road and keep doing what I'm doing. You know, I've said this before. We're screwed. Well, not me, you. All of you people who are in the system, all of you who play the game, who think that it works, that will actually take the time to show up to the polls, will actually take invest any amount of time in the politics of America, and you're wasting your time. It is a fruitless endeavor. That's about the best I can say about it. It's completely fruitless. I could say that it's criminal and that it borders on violating everyone around you, but it's hyperbole. And that's what I mean by when I say you guys are screwed and I'm not. It affects you. It doesn't affect me because I'm not going to play by the rules. I'm going to be like Donald Trump. I will be like the president. I will be like any one of these other individuals with the idea, with the very clear picture in their head that they don't have to play by the rules. Even if they think that they're the ones that make the rules, they still don't have to play by them. And I don't either, and I won't. And I don't every single day. Every single day of my life, I go out of my way to make sure that the things that I do don't support the system in any way, shape, or form. And I'm happy to do that. I'm very happy to do that. I think that it's one of the highest callings that an individual can have, is to stand on his own and be his own person and not support the system in any way, knowing that the system is against the individual, that the system doesn't care about the individual, it only cares about itself. And that's what the people inside the system, that's what your Donald Trump That's what he realizes. He's been through the system before. He's been through this. He sees, if anybody knows, he should know that he can do certain things, and really it doesn't matter. He can do anything he wants, and that somebody somewhere is going to have to sue him or take him into a court. And when you make your actions along political lines, half the people support you and half the people don't. So how are you going to necessarily get in trouble for that? It's going to happen like it does all the time, no matter what. None of these people are ever held accountable. It doesn't matter what the reason is. It doesn't matter what the crime is. It doesn't matter who they hurt. I liken it to the Alex Jones thing with him being sued by the people of Sandy Hook for that whole thing, and the ridiculous amount of money that he's being sued for, and the claim that the sort of superficial claim, they don't really come right out and say it, but they want you to believe it, that he made his wealth off of those conversations, off the people of Sandy Hook, and that he was the one that was responsible for all their pain, their anger, their fear, their frustration, everything that's come up since the events of Sandy Hook. And the fact is that he's not. And if you can claim that he is, if you can claim that some other person's actions can be driven by his words and that he's at fault for them, then every single politician, every single single newspaper, every single television station, radio station, news radio, it doesn't, every single one of them that's ever had a story that they lied, held back the truth, misrepresented the truth, didn't get the whole story, went out and reported on it, and somebody died because of it, they're all guilty too. Period. Straight across the board. So it's the same with these globalists and their little plan for running the world, is that they've stepped outside that. They've made themselves a part of something more than the system. They've managed to put themselves above it, and the easy way to do that is just to let the system and the people within the system fight itself. You go in, you play it. He's getting rich right now. He's making more money than he's ever made before. His own investments and his investments in his companies are all up. Generally speaking, maybe his True Social doesn't have it. I heard they had to buy back some of their shares or something here recently, but whatever. That's not the same as a business that provides a real service for people. That's just another place for people to go and complain about a system and people and things that don't work for them, while not actually wanting to remove the system, that just replace it with something that they think will work for them. And then, of course, they get to do the same game again 4 years later. It just blows my mind. It's tiring. It's extremely tiring. And then that's where you find me at, coming in here each weekend. What do I talk about? Do I talk about these things that they're talking about? Or is it that important that what they're going on about? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So that's why we put the stuff down there on the website, towardanarchy.com. If you do happen to go to the website and you want to follow along, and you'd like to keep up with what we're doing each week, it's easy enough to do. Excuse me. I put this stuff up there. I have to have some sort of something to look at, to decide, to keep me on track, help me give some kind of direction, because it could go anywhere. There's just so much to talk about. If you get to towardanarchy.com, look for episode 2522, Dr. Dean Lloyd. He will join me at the top of the hour. We have a fantastic conversation for his regular visits. We're going to talk about some key concepts that I believe are key concepts for anarchists, voluntarists, libertarians, those type of people, that they have to recognize and to actively practice to really be the person that they label themselves as. If they label themselves a voluntarist, then they have to participate in actions voluntarily, and they have to let others participate in things voluntarily. And there are any number of these instances, and Dr. Lloyd and I will get into this much deeper, just about individuals and times at times in your life, and you yourself perhaps, where you have to decide that you have to make a decision about what somebody else is doing, and that decision has to be a good decision. It has to be a smart decision. It has to be based in some sense of morality. It's a weird statement, I know, because morality means different things to different people, but I think that there's some simple, basic morality that exists that we should all be able to accept, and I think that what Dr. Lloyd and I will be talking about at the top of the hour fits into this. It fits into these categories of things that you do or don't do to get your point across, and to keep and in doing so, to keep yourself still on the side of the righteous argument, I guess. And I know that's all vague, but that's because I don't want to sit here and rehash what we're going to talk about at the top of the hour. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of what's coming up there and what you can expect. I think any voluntarist, any anarchist needs to listen to this conversation, needs to listen to conversations like it, and needs to take up topics like it, because it's about knowing your place and knowing your space and knowing who you are in relation to other people and how you're going to approach other people. And it's just a great conversation. So we'll bring in Dr. Lloyd here at the top of the hour, and we'll have that conversation. Until then, there's plenty to do, including do me a favor and support the network, republicbroadcasting.org. You just go there. You just type it into the browser, republicbroadcasting.org, and then you'll notice right over there on the left-hand side, there's a little yellow-orange button over there that says donate. With a couple of clicks through there, you are making a one-time donation, you're making a regular donation, whatever amount you need. It's all up to you, whatever you can do. We know, we understand. Otherwise, if you want to complicate things, make it hard on everybody, give us a call. 800, I say it tongue-in-cheek, but come on, how easy is it to just click a couple of buttons and enter in some numbers and be done with it? But no, you got to call up the phone, you got to wait for somebody to answer it, you got to make sure they can help you. You get what I'm saying? 800-724-2719, extension 3. If you need to speak to somebody, we understand. That's why we make it available for you. We wouldn't make it available if we didn't really want you to use it. 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. That's where you could send a check or a money order and just make it out to RBN. Otherwise, visit shoprbn.com. That's the win-win. You support the advertisers. The advertisers continue to advertise across the network, and we get to continue across the network to bring you amazing shows like this one. It's only 2 hours out of an entire week. There are many, many more hours of conversation and information to be had across the network. It's not just about me. There is, in fact, a fantastic show that's been happening on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we're working on figuring out all the details right now and getting the show a permanent time space and expanding it to a little bit longer time period so we can include more people. But it's called Your Health in Mind. I've been hosting it with Dr. Dean Lloyd. I just sit there and ramble on and do the silly things that I do. He does the serious, the legwork, the answering of the questions. It's that, and that's what it is. If you have health concerns, you have questions about your health or someone you love, their health, or you're getting ready to go and face your healthcare provider and you just don't know exactly how to approach them, you don't know what to say, don't know how to deal with them for any number of reasons, maybe you don't have the language, whatever it is, Dr. Lloyd is there to help empower you. And so that's going on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time across the Republic Broadcasting Network. And fantastic. It's live. You can join in. You can call up and ask your questions. And Dr. Lloyd is fired up. He's ready to go. He can answer those questions. He just needs to hear you ask him. Go to towardanarchy.com. Look for 2522 so that you can follow along. And there's just so much wonderful stuff. I love this. And I just thought this was hilarious because there's this meme. And everybody knows the thing about toilet paper, right? Everybody has their thing about toilet paper. I guess. I don't. I couldn't care less. It goes on the roll, it's on the roll, whatever. And the next time I go to put one on the roll, it may go on the same way, it may not. Don't care. The whole thing about, whether it's overhand, whether you put the roll on there overhand on the dispenser or if you put it underhand on the dispenser. And there's this great little meme that somebody obviously thought that they were being real smart and real clever and real cute when they did it. And so what you have is this meme that is the toilet paper guide to political philosophies. And so you could just roll the dice on this or flip the coin on this one, and either one of these could be. But it says underhand. It shows the toilet paper displayed, and it shows the underhand roll. They're coming from the back side, down the back side, and it says that's the Democrats. And then the next image is the roll coming down the front side, and it says that's Republicans. And then this is where it gets real cute. And so there's just a toilet paper roll just set up on top of the dispenser. It hasn't been put on the little spindle or anything. It's just sitting on top of the dispenser, and it says that that's libertarians. And that is hilarious, because I get it. The libertarian thinks, oh yeah, we're being the rebel, we're being different. It's not just the same thing coming out in a different direction, but it actually is. It's literally that's all that this meme says to me when I see it. That it's literally the exact same thing, just a different appearance. There's nothing different. It's the same roll of toilet paper in all three. All three rolls of toilet paper do exactly the same thing. You get all three rolls of toilet paper exactly the same way. You pull them off of the roll, and that's it. The way it's sitting there, the way it's positioned, the way it appears to you to be delivered up to you is the only thing that's different. So what you're really looking at here, it's not different. The libertarians aren't special. What you're really looking at here is the same people. It doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter what they call themselves. The same people, you'll have to forgive me, doing the same shitty job. That's really truly what it is. You know I'm good about that stuff. If it really didn't make the point, I wouldn't say it. But there you go. It's so obvious to me. It's just funny because obviously some libertarian just thought, capital L libertarian, party member, thought they were being cute, thought they were being smart. Oh, look at this. This is neat. We can show them we're different. We're not the same. But it's literally the same. It says exactly to me the opposite of what they're trying to get it to say to you. They want you to, we're different. They want you to think we're different. But they're not. It's just the same. And it doesn't matter. That's the whole point, right? It doesn't matter what name you slap on it. It doesn't matter what facade you slap on it. The actions, the things that it has to do, everything is the same. No difference whatsoever. And as I'm wandering through my day, and I find that, and that's funny and wonderful and interesting, another thing that I'm seeing is everybody's little comments about Iran. So when like I was saying, when we were here last week, when I left, we were talking about, there's a 2-week window or whatever, and then then the president is going to order some bombings on Iran, and they did it at that time, basically at the time that the show was airing last week, so can't win. And so we come back here this week and all through the week seeing things across the social media and people commenting and it becomes clear that the rhetoric about how successful this is and why they did it and just everything to do with it across the board is just that. It's just rhetoric. It's just lies. It's just a conversation. It's just a distraction. Tell me that Iran is not a distraction from what's going on in the streets here in America and the fact that the president has unilaterally decided that it's okay for military troops to be active on American streets, in a minimal sense at this point, but how much further does it go? But it's just sort of great watching them talk about, go back and forth, and one side saying, oh, well, the truth is nothing happened, and the other side say, well, you guys are liars, and we set their nuclear ambitions back by, who knows, forever. It'll be forever before they can recover from the damage we've done, and the assessments throughout the week. Initially, the assessments were it didn't seem like anything was done, because the first thing people started to do was looking for radiation around the sites where the bunker busters hit. And apparently there was little or no radiation, no changes. And so it was obvious that whatever they were after, these core facilities, I guess the stuff wasn't there ultimately. They'd probably already moved the enriched uranium out of there. But at any rate, whatever they did, whatever America did in terms of bunker busting wasn't particularly effective, and so they just were talking all week about how one side or the other was lying about the effectiveness and the reasons behind the just the actions at all. And there was a great cartoon by one of the famous New Yorker cartoonist Lars Kenseth. He's been doing it for a day or two, and it was just this sort of military looking person. It was generic. It wasn't meant to look like the president or any one of our particular military leaders or something like that. Just it could be any sort of military leader, and sort of a generic statement, but it certainly fits in. And it said, we have no concrete idea what we did, what comes next, or what it means for the globe, but other than that, it was a spectacular military success. And of course, just the use of the word spectacular leads you to believe that obviously they're sort of talking about Donald Trump, because that's one of his things, right? He'll get a word like that. Oh, it's just spectacular. We had the most spectacular people on the planet and the most spectacular military, and the explosion was spectacular, and you wouldn't believe what we did. It gives you the impression that, well, yeah, we know who we're talking about, don't we? I read a great little comic book this week that I want to tell you about, because it's one of these important situations in a comic book that doesn't come up too often. You know, most of the comic book stories that we get to see, that we get to read each week, are just stories. They're not life-changing events, universe-changing events, things that would even, maybe a milestone moment captured on paper. So that's the question of this book that I read this week to share with you in particular. Because is it a milestone moment captured on paper, or is it just another in a long line of reboots and restarts and resets that the comic book industry does? And so when I was looking at the new history of the DCU and looking into what it's about and who wrote it and who's doing the art, that was the question that I had in the back of my mind. What am I looking at here? Am I looking at some attempt to truly reshape the DC universe, or is it just an explanation of the DC universe, given that there's about 90 years of history at this point? The new history of the DC universe, it's a 4-part series celebrating that sort of 90 years of history, explaining that sort of 90 years of history. It's written by Mark Waid, compiled by Mark Waid, that went out, and he and others went and did a ton of research to pull this all together and to create a sort of a timeline and a history of events, and that's what this 4-part series is. And they start right at the beginning, and there's all these wonderful different creators and artists for each different issue of the comic book. In this case, Todd Knock is the main artist on this, along with Jerry Ordway. In fact, Jerry Ordway been around for many, many years and very influential in the DC universe, in fact. And so it's a really neat thing. I'm not a big DC guy. I like Batman. There's not much else necessarily that I follow in the DC universe. That's not to say that I don't know it or like it. It's just that I don't. It's you have to pick and choose. You can't read it all. I found that out certainly doing this here as of late, knowing that it's that much harder to do this, to read these books and then go and do a review of them, and still keep doing reviews, going forward with doing reviews, and still being able to try to continue to read for enjoyment on the side of it. It's a really tough thing to do. So if you're getting to read any of them, if you're getting to read just Batman out of the DC universe, then you're that much further ahead than most people. it's a great big universe, and it's been around for 90 years, and there's a lot going on. When this book opens up, when the new history of the DC universe opens up, we see Barry Allen. He's just sort of sitting at a computer, and he's doing history. He's doing the history of the DCU. You know, Barry is the second Flash, and he's one of the founding members of the Justice League. And now he is, because he's really the one person, the most traveled person throughout the multiverse. He's now the person who gets to chronicle it. He's the chronicler of time, and he really starts right at the beginning of the DC universe and its foundings, and the sort of what is it? The source. That's the pre anything, and then the hands that shape the source. I mean, so it really goes all the way back to the beginning of time as far as the DC universe goes, and they just go through the ages and show where despair comes from, or the Spectre and that connection, and the demon, and it just goes on and on. But it's a nice thick book because there's a storytelling portion of the book. The first half of the book is the storytelling portion of it, and it's really just sort of a sentence or two about a time period as you jump forward in time to these next massive events, whatever it happens to be. Angels falling from Merlin magically changing somebody. There's all these different stories, and some of them are new. Like the thing about the source and the hands and all that. That's really described recently. That's sort of back to 2018, and that's what's cool about the second half of the book. It's the timeline. And so it goes through and it actually shows you, well, if you want to know about the source and the hands, the best place to start, the information that Mark and everybody is working from for this new history is in such and such an issue from, I think it was like Justice League number 22 or something like that from 2018 that in particular told that story. But that's wonderful how that works, because you can go through and you can read about these different events, or you read about Jonah Hex. There's mention of Jonah Hex and all the different characters throughout the Wild West, Johnny Thunder and people like that, all throughout the Wild West, and through the different eras. And then you move forward to sort of the era of World War II, and that's just kind of the history of Earth. And there's also the cosmic stuff going on out and about and around. You have the Manhunters, the robot Manhunters, and then of course they're replaced by the Green Lanterns, and the whole history is there. He goes all the way back. Oh, just one real quick note. It's an interesting thing. So you open up on Barry talking about these things, and he's seated at a desk in it looks almost like a dorm room almost, but it's just a man cave, somebody's office, Barry's office, and he's talking about how old he is, but he doesn't look old. He talks about how he's retired. I guess that's more than the age thing. He's just talking about how he's retired and how he's become a chronicler of it, and how he's traveled throughout the multiverses and seen all these things. But it's not just that. As he's sitting there, you see around him in a shadow box on the wall, up on the wall, is Superman's cape. And I think the Penguin's hat was sitting there. The Penguin's top hat was sitting there in one, or maybe it was the Mad Hatter's top hat. I don't know. There was a top hat that could have been used. It was purple, probably Penguin. Could be Joker. Joker didn't wear a top hat. The Penguin wore a top hat. But there was other things like Loki's staff, which if you know Loki's staff, you know exactly what that looks like, and it's there. It's just there, hanging out in Barry's office, and there's all sorts of other artifacts, masks, relics and power rings and all scattered about his office. So that's an interesting thing. I don't know if they'll ever tell us what that's about. Is it just his collectibles? Is it like the collectibles that are around me at any given time? Oh yeah, I have lots of Green Lantern rings running around. I have Red Lantern rings, I have Green Lantern rings, I have Black Lantern rings, I have Yellow Lantern rings. Literally, I'm not even joking about this. I have them all over the place, but they're not real. They're not the actual Green Lantern rings. They're not the ones that anybody would be able to do anything with. You form a great big fist and punch somebody. I don't know. I guess we'll get to find out. It just was a neat thing to see him sitting there and amongst all that stuff. Well, what does that mean? Are all these people dead? Is he that much further in the future? Have all these superheroes passed and these are just relics of the past now? Do we not need superheroes anymore if things changed? Is there even a universe outside of the box that you see Barry sitting in? We don't know the answer to any of these questions. But he does take you through the creation, all the way up through to, and just past the creation of the JSA and into basically the launch of the Golden Age and Superman. The sort of the last scene of the book, no spoilers, is the pram being launched from Krypton before Krypton blows up, and then so that'll lead into the next issue, and I guess they'll pick up. There's so much going on with DC right now, because they have the absolute DC thing going on and the all-in DC thing going on, and these are simultaneous universes. One is the normal universe for DC that you recognize. It's built on the light of Superman and the history of Superman. And then there's the Dark Side universe, and they really haven't explained exactly how that's going to go. They have the characters they've introduced, and that's what the absolute characters are, and the absolute titles are doing great, and I've read a few of them, and they're really good right now. And so they're creating a wonderful universe outside or parallel to the regular normal DC universe, and doing things like this new history of the DCU to just kind of clean it up and catch people up, bring everybody up to, because again, excuse me, someone like me, I read a ton of comic books, but not necessarily all of them by any means, and certainly not within just one publisher. So to get the whole story of the DCU, you don't necessarily need to read, at least not now anyway, you don't necessarily need to read it all. You wouldn't want to really necessarily either, because you wouldn't find, some of it would entertain you, some of the characters you would like, some of them you wouldn't. Some of the storylines you would find interesting, some of them you wouldn't. It's just the way it would be. So this is just a great little way for you to understand maybe some of the things that shape some of the characters you love inside the DC universe. It's the new history of the DC universe. If you can't find one at your local comic shop, hit me up at AmazingFantasies.com, or better yet, stop in the store and see one of I know we got quite a few of the covers. I went with the Art Germ cover. I had to have that one because it was a classic Wonder Woman picture. And it was a foil, and I'm a sucker for a foil. It's in your stores right now, in your local comic shop right now. Come see us here in Topeka, Kansas at Amazing Fantasies. Okay, so I want to jump right back into the topics and the things that are up there at towardanarchy.com. Look for episode 2522, and I have all the links there for you. Everything that I found that I just don't know. It could have been anything this week. Trump deploys more troops to L.A. We were talking about that last week. The theft of America's wealth continues as historic returns on tariffs. There's the stupid question that some idiot asked, and somebody paid him to ask it and print it, and it's just stupid speculation and the kind of division, stuff that causes division, makes people envious of other people for no reason, because it's an exercise in imagination. We'll get to it. And, the local authoritarians here bragging about how they've used their technology to find people and track criminals, and they have this real-time operations system here in Shawnee County, Kansas. It's a room. It's exactly what you would expect it to be. It's a room with a bunch of cameras and computers and AI to sift through the faces and the information and the license plates. And I don't know if you've ever seen them. I know that they've had them in here in Topeka for a long time. You can see it when you drive past one of their cop cars. If you've never looked, though they're trucks, they're not cars. If you drive past one of them that actually has it, very few of them have it, but they do. It's a laser system that scans everything around it. You can see, occasionally in the right light or the right direction, you can see the lasers working and moving off of the car. You can see them emanating from the vehicle, from the top of the vehicle, scanning license plates, scanning everything around them. And all that stuff's just fed into a computer. And they let the AI run roughshod over it. We'll look at that story. And again, the economy just is not getting better. And then I have this nice little list of 18 horrible places that you could live that you're either a slave or a cop killer in the making, because the authoritarian scum there can take your right of self-defense away. And those are all the stories there under the Anarchist Audit. And so let's just dive in and check out a couple of these things. I talked about Trump putting more troops on the streets, L.A., last week, and the one story was just, it had so much other stuff in it, and it was great when I was able to see this one. It was right after, not long after, a couple of days, it looks like 2 days after just the last show, having that on my mind, thinking about, that just didn't say what I wanted it to say. It wasn't the information really that it claimed it would be. So then there's this piece from The Guardian, and it's through Andrew Gumbel in Los Angeles, and it's about militarized L.A. troops here to stay as Trump doubles down on employments. And it just talks about some of the things that I brought it up here just at the beginning of the show, and that's this notion that what could be going on here is a distraction, right? That what they're doing, the Iran is a distraction from what's happening on the streets, and they kind of hint at that in here. But if you listen to the rhetoric of the president before the election, he said he was going to do this. This is exactly what he said he would do. And he knew that there would be opposition, that there would be the leftists out on the street blocking traffic and possibly damaging property. And he was looking for the opportunity. He was absolutely hoping that it would pop up, that this would come up, and that he would be able to do something about it, and that he would exercise his authority. And he did. He watched what was happening in L.A. He didn't give it any chance, didn't give them any chance. I imagine it was pretty funny, somebody overhearing a conversation with me, and somebody in the store, the comic book shop, hearing a conversation of my conversation with somebody else about what was going on in L.A. about 2 weeks ago, back right at the start of it, and knowing people that lived in L.A. and listening to people, Arnold Schwarzenegger for one, who came out and discussed very clearly about how about how it was very clear that what was happening down on the street wasn't as bad as what the media was trying to make it out as. They were trying to make it look like it was so much bigger and so much more of a problem than anyone could control or would control, and made the claims that ultimately they weren't going to do anything about it, and that the socialist, the mayor there in L.A. and Gavin Newsom, that they weren't going to do anything about it, that they were just going to let these people destroy property and attack police and attack government buildings and things like this, and it just wasn't really the case. It was just really overblown. And then of course you escalate, and that's exactly what the Trump moving the military in, taking over the National Guard, these things he did all of these things, and he did it knowing that he was going to be able to do it. He knew he would be looking for an opportunity to jump on that. He knew exactly how it was going to play out. Again, he's been here before. He's seen this, and he knows already the tools and the things that he can use to manipulate the situation. And again, no consequences for him. There's just no consequences for him. You can go look at that story on militarized streets in LA and what it really means. Again, the links are up there. I leave you to it. There was just a couple other things that I really wanted to look at closer than because that's obvious, and it's a fluid situation, and it's something that there's nothing any of us can do about it. That's the thing that's annoying about it. There's nothing that any of us can do about it in terms of turning it back or preventing it. So the only thing we can do is just sort of sit here and watch the situation play out. There's just so much more going on. I talked about it a little bit last week. Nobody cares what's going on. Nobody in the rest of America cares what's happening in L.A. That's the facts of it. The people in L.A. don't even care what happens. They obviously have removed themselves from any responsibility or caring about what happens to their state and the people around them. They're either aligning themselves with the political class and going along those lines, or they're aligning themselves with with this broken socialist class of people they don't have any homes, they don't have any jobs, and for whatever reason, and many of them are their own reasons, because a lot of these people are people with just too much time on their hands, causing trouble, and just not going and finding something else to do. And that's not to say that people shouldn't be out there trying to make note of, to bring light to the fact that the U.S. government is doing what it's doing in terms of rounding up people and not giving people due process. And I say people for a very specific reason, because it's not citizens, it's not Americans, it's not white people, it's not white men, it's not slave owners, it's not property owners, it's people. The people have the right to due process. Let's just stick with that one in simple. All people have a right of due process. It's something that is afforded all people because our government is supposed to be fair and balanced and work for the people and not against them. And it's supposedly supposed to be there to resolve conflicts between people and between states and between people and states. And it just doesn't do that. It just doesn't accomplish those goals so much. And so you have to kind of remind yourself that that's what they're even there. That's what they're supposed to be there for. But the people in America, the rest of America, just doesn't really care what's happening in L.A., and so it's never really going to be. Nothing like that is ever going to be a catalyst for change. It's just going to be an exercise in authoritarianism that the next person in power, the next president in power, will be able to look at as precedent. The courts will be able to look at as precedent, and you'll be that much closer to military on the streets in any given situation that the government thinks that it needs to do it. The military is already very leery of the idea of them being used to police the streets. But if you do it incrementally, that's the thing about it. You crank it up incrementally, you use a little bit different language, and all of a sudden they don't feel like they're being used for the wrong person. You're just here to protect the federal assets. You're not here, you're only here to escort the federal people around. Well, the federal people are going around breaking the law. They are acting immorally and illegally across the board in their pursuit of these so-called criminals. And that's a problem. That's where the real problem is at. And if these troops, they can't see that, and they won't see that if it's just slowly implemented. You slowly turn up the heat. And they know this. Trust me, they know this. The president knows this. Donald Trump knows what's going on, and he knows how to help manipulate this system, and he knows how to play at this point. He knows how to play these people off against each other and get them fighting each other instead of concentrating on the real villain of the piece, if you will. There's so much going on. I wanted to look real quick at that stupid question. I just wanted to give you what the stupid question was because I mentioned it. It's a terrible question, and this Andrew Lisa person, it needs to be smacked. Seriously, needs to be smacked right across their face and adjusted. I don't know. Maybe smacking them isn't the best thing for them, but I don't know what else you do with a retarded adult that asks stupid questions because they're not capable of understanding, or they're unwilling to understand any truth or reason in a conversation, and that's why they come up with a stupid question like, if wealth was evenly distributed across the U.S., how much money would every person have? It's a horrible, horrible question. It's poorly answered. It's an exercise in fantasy, as I was saying. They just talk about, how about $500,000 or so for every person in your family? Yeah, that's right. A family of 4 would have $2 million. How? How would they have it? How would they have it? This is an exercise in fantasy, and it's not just an exercise in fantasy and, wouldn't it be neat if? No, this is something that's purposely meant to make people who don't have as much as everybody else hate the other people that have as much, that have more than they do. That's all it's for, because this isn't like an academic pursuit. This isn't somebody looking at our system and our society and how things work and saying, well, if we just did things this way, there would be a more even distribution of wealth. And it's not even that. It's not that. It's just a stupid question, and it's just a stupid question that was posted, across mainstream media. And they just love stuff like this. They just love it. How does just shy of $500,000 sound? It depends on who you ask. And they use this data commons project from Google, and they just did the math about how much money was here. 304. Let's see. According to Google's data commons project, the U.S. is home to roughly 340.11 million people. If they divvied up the country's $160.35 trillion jackpot, that's the language right there. That's their language. They're calling it. That's not a jackpot, you jackass. You know what that is? That's hard work. That's hundreds of millions of people, tens of millions of people. There's a bunch of lazy people. Tens of millions of people putting in a whole lot of hard work and a whole lot of time and a whole lot of effort and sacrificing a whole lot of things to create that $160 million. It's not a jackpot, you jackass. This is just the sort of thing that the people have to deal with. How are we supposed to ever... Because, again, that's not even an academic pursuit. It's just some dummy asking a stupid question that doesn't need to be asked, that can't really be answered. Things could never be that way. All you're doing is suggesting... All they're doing is taking a platform like that and saying that CEOs shouldn't have this much money. They have no reason to say why they shouldn't have this much money. The only reason that this person shouldn't have this much money is because this person over here doesn't have that much money. And that's not a reason. That's not how wealth is made. That's not how individuals distribute their wealth by their own choices using capitalism. It's an exercise in stupidity. It really is. I mentioned the thing about the AI tools, and I wanted to follow up on it because it's happening. It's happening everywhere, and it's funny because somebody somewhere, let's see, Was it right here? There was somebody somewhere this week when I was looking at stuff that said something about us. Oh yeah, it was. I know where it is. I know exactly where it is. I'll get you exactly what it was. It was actually Reason. You know, the magazine Reason, the sort of libertarian magazine called Reason. They did a story, and the story was about. Here, I'm getting to it. It's hard. It's hard to talk and do it at the same time. It should be right here. Where is it? Here it is. Right here. Right. This is it. Yes, Reason magazine. This was yesterday afternoon when I saw it. I don't know when the original story came out. America is slipping steadily down the slippery slope to a surveillance state. One, too many S's. Too many S's. Find some other words. You're not trying to be cute. This is not Peter Parker. This is we're not trying for alliteration. It's a news story. We're not trying to be cute and funny. We're not The Onion. We're Reason. We're trying to have a reasonable conversation about a serious topic. Could we approach it that way, please? New Orleans City Council considers ordinance to adopt real-time facial recognition technology. Let me explain something to you. If we're adopting facial recognition technology at this point, it means that they've been capturing the faces already. We are not steadily slipping towards a surveillance state. We have been in a surveillance state for 24 years or more, and they are just now. This is the end of the surveillance state. You're late to the party if you think this is the beginning of the surveillance state. This is the end. This is where they take all of the infrastructure and all the things that they already have in place that they did even while you were complaining about it, and they enact it across the board, and they attach it to AI, and that was the importance of the story. There's so much. I can't even begin to keep up with all of this and to be able to tell you all about it. I just know that relationally, here in Topeka, Kansas, in Shawnee County, Kansas, they have a real-time crime center, monitoring center. They have various cameras throughout the county, and they're all tied together, and they can follow license plates, and they can track people. And it's funny because they're all bragging about this, and they're bragging about how they automate the process of writing up a complaint on somebody, and this is already a bad thing. It's already a horrible thing that we go through in this failed process anyway of our judicial system, where any random person that's so-called that's given so-called authority can create and fabricate any reason to arrest you. Yeah, we're running out of time here, and yeah, not just in the show. That's part of the problem. We're running out of time here. They've instituted the technology. They have put everything in place to take over. They already have. That's the thing. It's already there, and that was the point about commenting on the Reason article, is because we're so far past being in that space. We're now in the space where they're using the tools, and just to cap this off before we bring in Dr. Lloyd and have that wonderful conversation. Obviously we have people going around in masks, rounding people up, refusing to identify themselves, just, total rendition, it's extraordinary rendition. You're just grabbing people up off the streets, taking them away, and they're using the technology to do it. And so you have cities. You have a city like Denver. You have a city, you have a county like you do here in Topeka, Kansas, Shawnee County, Kansas, where they've set up all this stuff, and they've been using it for years, and they keep just adding more and more, and now the AI is here, and now the AI can do all the work for them, and So in Denver is a perfect example, is one of these places where these masked people have come in and started snatching up people off the street, and they used Denver's technology, the tracking systems, the cameras, the license plate trackers, all the stuff that I've been talking about for the whole episode, to track these people and hunt these people down. And now Denver is freaking out about the use of these things. And I got a little bit of news for y'all. People like me told you about this a long time ago. It was a slippery slope 25 years ago. We got to go. Dr. Dean Lloyd is coming in here next to have this great conversation. Stick around. We'll be right back on Toward Anarchy.
Capitalism does not tell men to serve and sacrifice, but to produce and profit. Capitalism does not preach passivity, humility, resignation, but independence, self-confidence, self-reliance. And, above all, capitalism does not permit anyone to expect or demand, to give or to take the unearned.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman, because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
And here we go off into hour number 2, towardanarchy.com to follow along. When you get there, it's episode 2522. Wherever you're listening to the show, take just a quick second to click that like button and tap that like button, that little thumbs up button, whatever it is right there. Let me know that you're there. And if you're at towardanarchy.com, you want to follow along. It's 2522. That's the episode. When you get there, you'll see Dr. Dean Lloyd is back. Facilitator, healer, friend of mine. You know, we've been doing this a few years here. It's kind of nice. It's great. It's a wonderful relationship that Dr. Lloyd and I have. It's one of these very mutual relationships. He comes on for an hour out of the 16 hours, I guess, or so each month that I do, and it's the 1 hour out of the month that I don't have to worry about anything. I don't have to worry about whether it's going to work. I don't have to worry about whether I'm going to be able to have my conversation with the person, if they can keep up their end of the conversation. I just get to come in here, turn on when the technology is working, I come in here, we turn on the camera, and we start chatting with each other. Otherwise, we spend about half an hour playing around with some things, and but we get there eventually. If you want to know more about Dr. Dean Lloyd, go to evolvingthespecies.com. And from there, there's much to find. It's just a good place to start to find out about Dr. Lloyd. After you listen to our conversation, we have a conversation like this once a month, and it's always an interesting topic. There's always something new and fun to talk about, and you hit me up this time to talk about a subject, and just before we started recording here, as I was saying to you, I have some very definite opinions about this particular topic. You know, it's a topic that's close to me. You and I have talked about it before, that notion that I'm sort of hyper aware of my presence with other people. You know, I don't impose on other people. I don't get in their way. I don't block off the aisle in the store when people are trying to get through. You don't have to say, excuse me. You don't have to ask me to get out of the way, because I won't be in your way. I'm just not there. I'm aware that of my space around other people and my making their life inconvenient, you know, getting in their way, not letting them have their conversation. I know you know this, Dr. Lloyd. You've certainly met any number of people in your lifetime that you just can't have a conversation with because it's one-sided. The second you start to say something, they immediately say, "Oh yeah, well, this happened to me one time," and blah blah, and it's all off on them, and you barely got out 2 words.
Well, that's being closed. We're talking about being hurt, and we're talking about skillful giving. We're talking about not getting hurt. And when you're in a place where you're wanting to be courteous, right? You move out of the way for, I open the door for women still. I mean, that's just my nature. It's not confused.
People
in my
get
mind.
It's a silly thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're confused and I'm not. And when I move in my own direction, when you're having a good time and you're having fun, people want to join in your party. Either that or they'll run as far away from you as possible because they can't control you. I've been in situations where people have tried to push my buttons, but when, especially with women that have, been able to, get some interest of my interest in a relationship, I've been, very keen to what can happen when the communication breaks down.
Yeah, right.
And I'm very, on top of this. When I see that their communication to me is trying to find my weak points, they don't find any buttons, and then it's not something that they can manipulate, or they'll be able to, take energy away from.
See, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing right there, that they can't push your buttons, because I'm one of these people that I'm quite certain that that there are instances where that sort of thing can build up on you, and people internalize that stuff, and then they explode and come unglued all over somebody, maybe even for the smallest little thing. So I have to get you to clarify who you are as a person, that you're not one of those people that will do that, because I know that if I bottle up things like that, it's funny. I was telling my business partner yesterday, because we'll get a dozen damn calls a day. Somebody trying to sell us something. It's, they just somebody off of some list, got our number off of some list somewhere, because we're a business, and they want to try to sell us new communications equipment or a new point of sale equipment or something like that. And we have absolute no interest in it. They're unsolicited calls. We're not interested, and we don't want them to call. We ask them not to call. And it's the same people or the same organizations over and over again, because it's the same stuff they're trying to sell you. And I said he answers the call yesterday from one of them, and he's just there, and he's holding it, no, just going along with the conversation, and for him, it turns into sort of 5 minutes of him listening to this person's sales pitch on the other end, when he knows full well he doesn't want it, doesn't need it, isn't interested in it. It's a complete waste of his time. It's really, it doesn't need to happen. And those calls for me end in 2 seconds. As soon as I know what it is, I tell them to go to hell, get off the phone, don't call me anymore, take me off your list. I'm not, and I said to him, I said, man, why do you let them do that to you? It's the one opportunity that you have to tell somebody to go screw. You can't do it to the customers when they come in here and they're acting a fool, and you're in a bad mood or whatever. You can't do it to them. You don't want to, but some random stranger calls you on the phone unsolicited, trying to sell you something you don't want. By all means, take out a little aggression. Let it out.
You don't get sucked in by those kinds of calls.
Well, that's it, right?
You're discerning, and that's where I'd like to go next, because when we are in a place where we're giving skillfully, you're also giving your energy, and if you're not helping them by contributing to their confusion,
Yeah, right. Yeah, in no way, shape, or form. Whether they're legitimate, because you're not going to buy into, you're wasting their time just as much as they're wasting your time. And if they're not legitimate, then yeah. I love the scammers. They try to the Social Security scams, things like that. There's these guys on YouTube that's all they do is they chase those guys. They'll even do it in live, real time. They'll be monitoring these people in Karachi or something like that, and they'll be using their own camera systems against them, using their own phone systems against them to monitor them. And they'll be literally on the phone trying to take advantage of somebody. And they'll call that person on the other line, break into the line and jump in and try to keep them from wasting their money or, jump in technologically, or, they'll pick up the phone and they'll call the person and they'll say, hey, you're talking to somebody on the other line. That person's scamming you. It's a really great thing to watch.
Well, it's because your lens is so focused on what isn't useful. It is, in other words, you can pick out right away, and your coworker may not want what someone else is selling. And that's another part of this, is that don't sell yourself a bill of goods that you don't need. The things that you need, you can be able to experiment, right? You can test to see if this is something that works for you. I understand perfectly if someone wants to try something, maybe it's a new software, or maybe it's, a new electronic gadget or something, to see where it takes them. I understand that. But what happens so often is the way that we are often, we're sucked into a kind of ubiquitous culture of being distracted and staying away from what it is we truly want. And I had to learn over the years. There was a time when I was in med school and working two jobs, where I had to be really focused on keeping my attention on where I was going, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have accomplished what I have. And that meant that the energy output that I had was just extraordinary. I mean, it was, I was determined to figure out what was going on with me and my injury. And of course, my studies that led me to my many conclusions, and much of which I have been able to compile in my book called Accutone, which is my baby, if you will. But it all comes to the point to where your energy output has to be monitored a lot. There's so much wasted energy on ridiculous things. People are just doing things that are stupid. I mean, it builds up. They're really not pointing themselves in a direction that they know where they're going. And even though I didn't know where I was going, I had an idea of what I was trying to accomplish. I got there. I got wherever I was going anyway, right? So when I was giving to people, and I had, skills that enabled me to, do a variety of things. And for example, when I was in med school, I was a caregiver, and for quadriplegics, paraplegics, this was very hard work in a lot of ways. Had to be patient, had communication barrier, all this kind of stuff. But I was constantly giving, and being in that place of that output, constant output, I had to give to myself. I had to stop and say, all right, I've reached my limit. I better give to myself. And so when you're giving out energy, there's a portion of the book in Evolving the Species I have on the website, Cruising the Epiphany Highway. And in volume 2, I take a lot of excerpts when I do these shows. And this is one of them, called Skillful Giving. I'll read it to you. In loving, you must be able to discern. You must know when it's appropriate to come forward. You must know when it's necessary to pull back. If you don't kick in the ass, metaphorically speaking, when necessary, it's as bad as if you don't hug and kiss feels good unto give. Good unto give. I'll read that again. If you don't kick in the ass, metaphorically speaking, when necessary, it's as bad as if you don't hug and kiss. Feels good to get. It feels good to give. In other words, it feels good to give a hug to someone you love. It feels good, kiss them on the cheek or wherever, And if you don't kick them in the ass when they're acting up, then you're allowing that energy to be stolen from you, to be sapped from you, and it's not helping whoever it is that's trying to, fool you, because you can't be fooled. And I said this in previous shows. No one can fool you. The worst they can do is give you the tools to fool yourself. So whenever there's that doubt, fear, confusion that comes up, any anxiety, anything that's making you uncomfortable, and you don't understand, you stop yourself before you start to give energy into the place you see where it's not being productive, useful, it's not benefiting them, and it's certainly not benefiting you if you recognize it. And most of the time when people are in relationships, and yourself, of course, when you're working out with the communication on what your differences are, right? If you're giving it your best, if you're not holding back, that gives you permission to go to places where you wouldn't normally go. And I'll read this other excerpt. You won't get hurt. When you enter into a relationship, if you don't hold back, give it your best shot and are completely honest. If it doesn't work out, while there will be a readjustment, you won't feel hurt. Now, that may say a lot for a lot of people, because you'll hear people go, "Daggum, you hurt me. You said that, and you were telling me this, and it was your fault that you made me feel this way." Well, when you realize that you're allowing yourself to get sucked in, then you can pull back and reassess what it is that you were doing that may have worked before but isn't working now. So it's really a safeguard that you stop yourself for allowing your energy to get sapped, right? To get drained. And you're probably, dealing with some of that right now. Most everybody has. Am I really giving out more energy than I need to in this circumstance? Do I really need to do what I'm doing? And then it becomes this kind of game with yourself. You kind of play into this, am I really enjoying this? Because if I'm not doing what I feel good about, then it's a lie for me. And if it's a lie for me, it's a lie for you. And I won't play that game. I catch myself if there's something I'm recognizing that I'm doing that I don't feel confident or I'm truly invested in. Because when you get that place where you enjoy all the giving, because the longer I've been doing this, Michael, the easier I found to give to people. But I'm also more tuned in to how to give. Because I give too much, I'm giving more than I need to give.
Empathetic people, it happens to empathetic people very easily because we have a seemingly endless well of empathy and sympathy and love for other people. And then all of a sudden it's kind of empty. And then you're like, oh, I need to recharge. I thought that thing was going to be full forever. And some of that is about the return on the investment. And some of it is just limitations. There's only just so much you can give.
Yeah. And I care about people. I love people, but that doesn't mean I want to live with them. There's a lot of energy that is what I would consider authority, in a position of authority that is misused a lot of times in the medical field. We tend to overstep our ability to make sense of things because we're constantly saying, well, look at this test. and look at this, X-ray, and look at this evaluation, and you have all of these things that line up, and you make an assessment, get a treatment strategy going, and you start with the program. What is often the case in my field is that the doctors buy their own trip. They don't allow themselves to be open to other possibilities. And when that closes the gate to other energies that allow them to grow in the field that they're in, then they become destructive. I wrote down here while you were talking that the phrase, of course, do no harm. Well, what's the flip side to that? What's the flip side to do no harm? If you're not doing any harm, are you doing any good?
Are you doing any good?
Are you doing any good? Ask yourself the question, are you doing any good? Are you contributing to the business model of the medical profession? And that for those that are new to the program, I'm multidisciplined, and I've been through the gamut, if you will, of the medical field, which is why I do individualized medicine now. And I could not fit in the slave in a white coat model. I couldn't morally find myself play into that role. So I had to be kind of a maverick, and I had to step outside. And when you were, talking about how you had, your colleague on the phone and, talking with whomever it is that is just going on and on and on, and they're obviously not interested. Well, what usually happens with people that get so invested in their hang-ups, it becomes part of them. They identify themselves as being somebody who cannot overcome.
Oh, yes, because then we could, victim mentality. Oh, I'm a victim of myself. That's the part that they never add to the end of that. I'm a victim, and they never add the myself part, because it's not like they couldn't change. It's not like there's something that they can't do. I'll give you an example of behavior. We have animals, and the animals are getting older. In particular, you have a dog that's getting older, and what happens when a animal gets older, they don't get around as well as they used to. Maybe they're a little incontinent, can't manage themselves as properly, and there's a number of things that contribute to that, particularly in the terms of animals. One being how many times you let them out. Often, how many times you get them out of the house. Obviously, they can't have accidents if they're going out and being escorted out on a regular basis and given a chance to relieve themselves. And so when you see something like that happen with your pet, and you see that there's an issue, what do? You alter the schedule, right? That's what the reasonable person does. The animal's old, but it's not in pain. It's not having lifestyle issues. It's just, it needs that much more attention. And so what do? You make the change, right? You let the dog out one more time in the afternoon, whatever it is, and that solves the problem. But then you meet the person that won't do that. They won't do the simple. You tell them that's how you solve that problem. No, I'd rather put the dog down. That's that person.
Wow. Yeah.
And then blame it on you. They want it's your. I'm sitting here. I'm giving you options. I'm telling you that these are the things that you can do to make the changes. This is a very specific example, but this is something that people need to apply across the board in an understanding like this. This is indicative that that type of an action or type of a reaction to an easily solved problem is indicative of the way. This is what you were getting at. The way that that person's going to handle anything that they do.
Yeah, well, reactive, right? I mean, you're obviously needing to make when you said slight adjustment, that is so applicable in so many circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't require a lot.
No.
It's just
The slightest little bit.
But their fuse is even smaller than that.
Yeah.
That becomes the issue, is that when you become in a place where you're flexibly adaptable and you're able to adjust to whatever the circumstances may be, then you put yourself in a place of, oh my gosh, the glass broke in the kitchen. That means I got to change direction, or I got 3 people calling me at one time, or you got to juggle that. But I've got this feeling of being confident to understand anything, or be interested in where I could understand what it takes to be a lawyer, be an attorney, and not that I'd want to be one necessarily, but I feel confident that I could understand under the rules in which they operate.
Oh, sure.
But you get to a place where you leave yourself open. That's why I'm saying in the medical field, we have such a myopic view of how.
Yeah, I get you.
That it becomes so counterproductive that the phrase "do no harm" is not complete enough for me.
Right. Can you do some good? Can you be more than a monolith? Can you be something more than just the one?
It's like the anti-negative thing. You can't not achieve your goals. Well, yes, I can. In other words, you're negatively charged for what it is you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Oh God, I wish there were good ways to explain that to people, because there's so many examples of how we approach things from a losing perspective. We start from the losing standpoint. We sacrifice ideas, we sacrifice language, we sacrifice our humanity to a collective, to somebody else's definition, to something other than the winning we don't even start from a place where we're set up to look to run the race to get to the win. We're already, it's like we missed out on the opportunity for the pole position and opted to take the 24th position.
Well, most people are in their box, Michael, -1. They're in their particular perspective, but it's diminishing returns. You're not moving into something that's better for you. You've attained a certain position. Let's say that you're in a vice president of some company or something, and you knew how to, talk to the right people or do the right things, have the right look, have the right, image or whatever you need. But when you reach that place of saying, what am I doing here? Like, what is the purpose of me playing this game? Then when you ask that question and you're being excruciatingly honest about it, know what you're doing there and why. If you're in a relationship like I talked about before, and you give it your all, and you're in that place where you're, discovering and you're finding out how to communicate with this person, and energetically you're feeling out what it's like to mesh energies and to connect your feelings and what you're wanting to achieve in your dreams and all this. If you're able to make that happen, there's kind of a magic that takes place, right? I mean, you're able to really open up that space that you wouldn't expect, maybe. You might not expect that you could express this. But when you're going into it and you're realizing that the energy that you're putting out is not something that's being received with the appreciation or the kind of acceptance of who, where you're at in life, this becomes a dance, right? You become when your partner and you are able to communicate really well, and you've got the other two pieces. You got your chemistry, your attraction, and you got your compatibility, your simpatico. Then you're able to make it possible to reach that place where it takes all you've got just to get to the altar of where love can be, the altar of where love can start to germinate and make things better. But until you've got that communication piece, until you've got that ability to say, okay, this is where I'm coming from. Here's where I'm feeling I'm being taken advantage of. Here's where I'm feeling like I need more attention being spent on this to get my needs met and that sort of thing. Then if the space is open for both of you to acknowledge, even though it may cause you to adjust, adapt, or make changes that you really didn't want to make, then it becomes this compromise thing. You say, well, I know where I'm going, but I was able to compromise for this particular moment in my life, and I'll adjust to it. But if you are constantly allowing your energy to go out and you're not getting your needs met, what does that do? It builds up resentment. And resentment means that you're not going to be giving freely. You'll be draining your energy, and you're not going to be helping others.
And then you're on the nightly news, and they're hunting you down because you
the pressure kettle, you blow up.
You let it blow up, and it went a little too far.
So I think you know where I'm going with this, and it comes to also your etiquette and where you're invited to come into. So I'm going to read this other phrase here.
No, this is good. This is the good stuff. This is what I was talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, your etiquette, your morals, right? I live by morals. That's my direction. And
they're undefined. They're so loose and undefined because they have very simple underpinnings, and they're about not violating other people. It's really that simple.
And when you get to that place, you're self-satisfied. And then when you're in that place of being self-satisfied, then if you combine the energies of someone that you're with, then how good can you make me feel? I mean, you make it better, but you have to have a reason to be together. And if it's just in a place where you're not doing it sexually, you're just being friends and you're energetically exchanging and you're opening up spaces for each other, then the best thing we can do for each other is to give us the truth, each other's truth, and to share it. Nobody does this work alone. We're not on this planet to be isolated. And although there are times that I've been isolated and it's helped quite a bit, I had to come down from the mountain finally.
It's not about isolation. That's the thing. That's the wrong word. It's about living with yourself. It's about knowing who you are and being able to live with yourself first, before you can live with anyone else, before you can, and we're not really afforded the opportunity to do that. Some of us get lucky. Some of us run wild from the age of about 12, and and then by if you're in a relationship with somebody that lasts 30 years and you're in there but in your early 20s or something like that, it's not that big of a deal. But there are too many people, at least historically in America. I don't know that it's that way so much today, but there had been historically so many men and women too, but men, being the more important part of it for something. It's just a longer conversation that I want to get into right now. It's just the important thing is that men were being coddled at home, and they were going basically from mama taking care of them right to the arms of some woman who's expected to take care of them. And there was this disconnect between what a man is supposed to provide for a relationship and what a woman's supposed to provide for a relationship. That's been skewed for a really long time. And so we have we certainly had a whole generation of men. I would say it's the generation before you and I, for sure, that and obviously some have come along since then, but that were definitely, you didn't leave the house, you didn't go out, you didn't learn what the world was like, and you didn't have the opportunity to learn what the world is like. You know, my wife and I talk about this all the time because we're Gen Xers, and so we have this weird space. We occupied this weird space somewhere between humanity and the singularity, you know, where we're all just machines, and it gives us a perspective that other generations before us and after us don't necessarily have. But there's also still people, because we're a cusp generation like that, there's people on both sides of it. And one of the biggest factors contributing to that was the fact that before my generation, before Generation X, really before mass communications, which was before my generation, but before mass communications helped, the information would get around, but it was really, really controlled. It was really, you know, it's handled by just a small number of people. But by the time my generation comes along and the internet comes along, you know, by the time I'm a late teenager, every bit of information in the world is at my fingertips.
Yeah, the access exploded.
Well, it shrinks the size of the world. It shrunk the size of the world for everybody. You know, most people before our generation, it would be lucky to talk to somebody. We still have people that don't move more than just a few miles from where they're born in this country, and the rest of the world. But then who also don't ever go anywhere either. They don't. It's not just that they're just right down the road from their place of their birth. It's that they never get outside of it and they never see anything else. But at least the internet and the technology has shrunk that, has really, really shrunk that world so that you don't necessarily have to leave your home to experience the world and different ideas. And you kind of had to do that up until my generation. And so there's something, we're a bit special, or we like to think of ourselves as being special anyway.
Well, what you're talking to me, and this resonates with what you're going, is that people are living through their media. They're not living as much as they're living through other things and through other people. You know, I couldn't elaborate on that, but it is mostly about when we invest our energy into these, well, the visual. The visual world, the seemingly unescapable artificial world, you know, the world of where you're, you know, fixated or addicted to the screen kind of thing, and your attention is outside of the world that you're interacting with. Back in the 90s, there was one patient that came to me with his mother. Was very concerned about him because he was overusing the internet, and at that time it was, you know, Windows 95, and that came out, and it was like a big deal that you could go online and all this kind of thing, and it was dial up and all that. You know, it was really exciting. You could email people right then and there. But anyway, he was getting visually so fixated that he developed a condition called restless leg syndrome. And this is where the eyes are overstimulated and the body.
Yes, total overstimulation.
Yeah. And he was doing too much of visual, and he was seeing things that, you know, that were, and he was like 15, you know, and he was seeing some X-rated things that were not healthy, I would say. But anyway, he was developing this addiction on screen, and he developed this restless leg. And to shift his attention away from the addiction was different than what I was used to, because it was a different kind of addiction.
Sure.
And
well, yeah. It
was a different kind of addiction, meaning that
it's a different source of addiction. Addiction's all relatively the same, but the source, the thing that triggers the feedback and the good feelings and everything we get is different. Yeah.
Right. And it comes back to this point of being hurt, because what's being allowed is there's so much. There was a line by Joni Mitchell where she said she was a little too free. Making me a little too free. Well, once you establish the parameters that are healthy, it's my position that to gradually work out of that is the healthy way of doing it, rather than going at it and just indulging yourself all the time and not being able to bring yourself back to a place where...
Well, that's the trick, right? It doesn't matter if you stay up all night when you have to work the next day, if you get up and go to work the next day. It only matters if you stay up all night and don't get up and go to work the next day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, there's expenditure, and that's what we're talking about. A healthy mind here that's giving yourself the body. The body's the dumb animal. You got to have a good the body needs a good master to tell the body what to do, right? And there'll be expenditure if you're not sleeping, but there might be.
The consequence is entirely a different point. Ultimately, it's the idea that you can do things, you can be you can go out, you can have fun, you can participate in the digital world, you can participate in the real world, you can do things that some people find to be offensive or wrong, and you can still get up and go and be a good person and do, it doesn't have to be the defining factor of your life. You can have fun and be responsible too, and I think it's a thing that humanity is going to struggle with forever. That balance between what is productive relative to your mental and physical health and what's productive relative to the rest of the world and their understanding.
Yeah, you said the word responsible, able to respond to whatever the circumstances are. The crying baby, the dog that's, incontinence. I mean, response able.
I don't know how I can explain this to people that there's all of life and choices and the things that we do. You can follow the same path for resolving those questions. All of the unsolved, unanswered questions, the fear you have of going into a thing, whatever it is, you can take the same path, the same A to B to C path of understanding and learning that you have for everything else that you've ever been successful at that you didn't understand going into it from the beginning, because it's all the same. It's all the same.
Yeah, well, that's part of our feedback. We're constantly evaluating. What we're doing is we're learning how we operate in a kind of ethical paradigm. That's what I was getting to. And here,
right.
This is good. This is working off of ethics. So this is that whole point. I don't come in if I'm not invited. I won't stay if I'm not wanted. I will always respect your space. Exceptions. I will interfere and impose my will if you are being physically attacked, if you have lost control and are hurting others and or yourself. In other words, you step in only if there's harm that's coming to you or coming to them, right? And that's an authority position. I've been seeing so much passiveness. It doesn't surprise me in a way, because I know
it's not passive in the right areas. It's not a productive passiveness, because the passiveness comes in instances that won't cause someone to question whether or not that authority should be passive at that point, or what the motives are behind it. And I would suggest that anytime authority is passive, actually this is something that we have to concern ourselves with right now. Go with what's happened with Iran and what's going on with our president, because our president is fully aware after the assassination attempt of something that I've talked about a lot. And that's that, none of these consequences for violating laws or offending somebody, none of the consequences to the person who does that, to someone who takes someone's life, who takes someone's property, none of those consequences matter after the fact, after you're dead. After, when he took that bullet in the ear, there's a lot of people that said it was fake. I don't think it was fake. I don't think there was anything fake about it. I think that somebody almost shot that man in the head, and now that's what's changed him. That's what's driven him to be so much different in this term than he was in the previous term, where he's so much more in your face. And it's this: he realized the same thing that they tell all those cops every night, every day when they go out onto the street, is that the important thing is that you come home at night. So it doesn't matter who they violate. It doesn't matter. And none of it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter if it's another country. It doesn't matter if it's another democracy or a Middle Eastern country, dictatorship. It doesn't. None of these things matter as long as he stays alive, as long as he makes money, as long as he leaves his mark. That's all that matters. And so we're in a very dangerous time right now, where authority will very easily allow things to happen to the population so that they can use acts against the population as a reason to exercise more of their authority. We're in a very precarious situation right now, where it's going to be very easy to ratchet up violence. And as we get closer and closer to the end of his term, it'll be interesting to see what happens too.
Yeah, it's allowing the harm to escalate.
Mm-hmm.
And
not stopping it, not doing that's exactly what we're talking about. The authority stepping in and doing the one thing that you would want authority to do if it's there to help protect us from, say, larger violent threats to us, as individuals or as groups. You would want it to do that, but its MO is to not do that. Its MO is to go around, stir up trouble with people, and then let us have the consequences. We're the ones that have to deal with the consequences of it. It's not like the military has to worry about being attacked by, a bunch of people living in caves or in hovels in the Middle East. It's normal people that have to be worried about being assaulted by as a revenge, and I'm not looking forward to, what's happening in politics over the next few years. It's not great.
Well, what you're talking about is collateral damage, and we're going to see a lot of it.
Seems like it, right?
So unnecessary. I mean, yeah. If you're coming at it from a change yourself point of view, when you change yourself, people are less aware of just their immediate impact on what is being done around the world, feeding the fear, because fear is a draining energy. Anger is a draining energy. And the more anger and fearful you are, the more you're being drained, and you're feeding that energy that's going, to bomb things, right? When you change, I know that this is something that we've covered in other shows that talk about how when you change, the world changes around you. And if we put our perspective on your concern about, what the collateral damage is going to be from all of this insanity that's been brewing, whatever position you're taking, it's your ability to properly take in the information without being sucked in, again, from the beginning when we were talking, sucked in by the fear base.
Yeah.
The foundation that says that you need to be afraid. You need to give us your energy. You need to run away. In other
Well,
words,
that's what it's for, right? Because that's exactly what it is. The reason that authority lets the people be harmed is because then they are given power. The people say, do something. They give them power and they say, here, go do something on my behalf because it's scary and I can't do it myself. Except that they caused the problem to begin with. These people that you're asking to help you solve the problem. So
this is the do no harm thing, right? I mean, we're talking about skillful giving.
Yeah.
We're talking about how you're giving energy to a source that is not worthy of it.
Yeah.
There are many people I've seen in positions of power. That doesn't mean that they deserve being there.
Doesn't mean they deserve it. I would say most don't. When we're talking about what's considered positions of power, I would say almost none of them do, because they're just voted on. They're not chosen for their skills. It's just a political contest. It's just a popularity contest.
Right, and this becomes more of an anarchist's perspective, where it becomes more individualized government. Where it becomes more in terms of your unique ability to make the people around you that you're attracting to you cohesive to the direction of where you're going, instead of it being always about someone else telling you how you're supposed to live. That whole kind of attitude.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, right. Well, I say that it's doable because I've done
absolutely.
It. I claim this with the audacity to claim it, I guess you could say. But does that mean? That means that I expect to be challenged. I want to be challenged within people that are intelligent, not wanting to just talk to me to pick a fight. Because if they're in for, trying to muscle their way in or create a dogma that is not workable, this is not about interrelating with each other. This is about one-upsmanship. And I recognize the signs, about how that will go.
Glaring.
And we're equipped with the tools. That's why I say is that you weren't perhaps given the best of tools when you were, in your developmental stage. Very few are. And
hey, do you know anything about this Nietzsche? I hadn't seen this before. There's something about Nietzsche and his 18 things, 18 steps, 18 things you can do to begin to recognize and read people.
Yeah,
I don't know. I only just had heard about it. I'm going to have to look into it.
Yeah, why don't we do that as our homework assignment? Both of us do that. And make this a part 2 next month.
Okay.
Because I've got more to say. There's a story that I want to tell. And how much time do we have?
I've got about 7 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to start with this story, okay? And then what we can do for the next show is go into those 18 ways of identification.
Okay.
And
sounds like fun.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk about something I'll, of course, expound on next show, but it's called the stimulus-response ratio. Consider everything that enters your field of awareness stimulates you, or you would not be aware of it. The intellect responds to that stimulation by grafting on a combination of symbols which represent how you think, you feel about it. There's a word that's going to be coming up here. It's called neurobolic. I'm going to define that. Okay, it's a word that I've created, and this is Dr. Am Rosen, that he created to indicate the interactive effects and effects that the nervous system and metabolism have on each other as they recycle through their mutually interactive and interdependent functions. Okay, I'm calling it neurobolic. Okay, so I'll continue. For instance, let's say you're the proud owner of a beautifully crafted piece of furniture. When you first bought this table, you were fascinated by it. For hours, you examined it minutely, its shape, size, color, the quality and texture of its materials, the workmanship, its visual and functional aesthetic. You moved it all around, viewing it from every angle, gauging its most effective appearance against the rest of the environment. For the next 2 weeks, you could not even walk by the room without looking in to admire the shrewdness of your purchase. After 2 weeks, however, you find that the table has lost its fascination for you. Why? After 2 weeks, you've done about everything that you could possibly do with the table. Your intellect, its subconsciously inadvertent associative reflex, has responded to the stimulus of the table by selecting various symbols, thought, feelings, to associate with the stimulus. Now, when you see the table, it no longer stimulates any new response that requires your intellect's particular attention. However, let's say you were to inhale some potent marijuana. Suddenly, you might find your interest reabsorbed into admiring the table. Why? The stimulus the table offers is the same. What changed is the ratio of response by which your intellect activates symbol associations. Your normal mode of perceiving has formed your previous ratio of response. The marijuana has affected your neurobolics. There's that word, neurobolics, okay? And your response ratio is now altered. The symbols previously selected no longer fully cover the response. So you pay attention and find the table again fascinating. If you were to stay in this marijuana-induced state long enough, your intellect would eventually form another set of symbols defining your ratio of response in this altered state of consciousness. Eventually, you would become just as disinterested with the table as you were before. Okay, now, there's a story I'm going to talk about next time with these farmers, but I wanted to bring up that stimulus issue because cannabis, marijuana, is a psychoactive adaptogenic herb. It's not a drug. Okay, and you've talked with other guests about this on your previous shows about their participation in doing recreational drugs and what have you. But I was talking in relationship to the stimulus and your response and your and how you can alter that by understanding how you operate to what is it that's causing you to be stimulated and what that ratio is about, right? What makes me feel good? What doesn't make me feel good? What motivates me? What doesn't motivate me? Through the years, things will change. Your perceptions will change as you become more aware of what it is that gives you pleasure and what it is that gives you pain. So it's that pain, pleasure, dynamic that you're trying to avoid pain, but you're trying to increase your pleasure. But where does that fall in line to where you're going instead of just being stuck in the box -1 that I was talking about before? Because when you're in that place of diminishing returns, not getting what you need, then you're always in a losing proposition. You're never fortifying your ability to make decisions that are making you stronger, healthier, more accessible to new things. I noticed you were looking at the clock, so I didn't want to elaborate.
Yeah, no, I just watch it. It's part of the thing. I always loved there's a scene, I think it's in Airheads, that's the Adam Sandler one, where they take over the radio station to get them to play their music on the radio. And the DJ there, they're talking to him. They're like doing an interview with him, and he's doing his carts, and he's like, he's just running his thing, doing his thing, and they say, oh yeah, not listening to the damn word they're saying. He's switching carts. Sometimes I feel like that, but no, I'm always paying attention. I don't always necessarily have something to add to it. I wish I did. I wish I always had something to say. But
this is
sometimes you just have to let the things speak for themselves, and I think that's where we'll have to leave it ourselves this week. So, Dr. Lloyd, thank you so much for joining. We'll pick up the conversation next time here. Appreciate you, my friend.